Hi everyone, and welcome to the second edition of the webinar, What Makes Art Powerful, hosted by Wei-Ling Gallery. My name is Amanda, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. So to begin with, let me explain to you a little bit on what the webinar is all about. This is a project that we started during the lockdown. As we worked from home, not being able to come physically to the gallery, we realized how much we had missed art and also how important art actually is to our lives. So, art is so powerful to an extent that it has become a universal tool to overcome the challenges of a life lived. We also feel that it's a topic that everyone, whether you are the artist or the audience, can relate to. And so we decided to let different art practitioners talk about it through our webinar. So for the first edition in May, I don't know if you had the chance to attend our webinar in May, we managed to engage three interesting panelists on board. So there was Malaysian painter Wei-Ling, Indonesian artist Dadang Kristanto, and also Malaysian film director Saw Tiong Hin. They talked about how they learned to deal with loss, grief, and human suffering through art making, and how art can be cathartic and evoke positive changes in their lives. So today, we are pleased to have three amazing women panelists to share their stories and projects. The first one would be Indonesian dancer Rachmi Diyah Larasati, and the second one, later at 12, will be Cambodian-American multidisciplinary artist Anida Yu Ali, and last but not least, we'll have Malaysian-born author in Norway, Longlit Woon, to share their stories. The speakers focus on different art forms, yet there is something that unites them all. That is their willingness to develop something honest yet beautiful out of their very own personal experiences and struggles. So we really hope that this forum can be a way to share the panelists' different stories on how art can heal, inspire, and empower many. As our first speaker today, we'd like to welcome Rachmi Diyah Larasati onto the screen, please. As you all know, Diyah is from Indonesia, but is currently in Minnesota, where she works and lives as a dancer, writer, and professor of cultural theory and historiography at the Department of Gender, Women, and Sexuality Studies at the University of Minnesota. She is also a faculty advisor of the Interdisciplinary Center for the Study of Global Change in 2016 to 2020, and a senior affiliate in Asian and Middle Eastern Studies. Diyah was a director of undergraduate studies of the Director of Dance at the University of Minnesota too. In 2013, Diyah published her book, The Dance That Makes You Vanish, Cultural Reconstruction in Post-Genocide in Indonesia. And it was published by the University of Minnesota. It's a book that theorizes actually cultural reconstruction and embodiment of memory after the genocide. So by this, she's actually referring to the genocide that happened in Asia between 1965 to 1967 during the shift between the old order, which is Sukarno's era, and the new order, which is Suharto's era. Her recent dance project includes On the Way to Cape Town, which she did in 2019, and also From Background to Al-Qaim, which is work in progress actually, and she will elaborate this more during her talk, right, Diyah? And last year, we also had the honor to have Diyah perform here at Wei-Ling Contemporary, Kuala Lumpur, as part of Dadang Kristanto's exhibition. The artwork that was presented last year by Dadang Kristanto also talks about the same socio-political context of the Indonesian genocide. So it's really something that has affected her deeply, and that's the whole reason basically that she dances. So it's dance as a form of healing and accepting actually. So today what she will be focusing on about is the way dance actually serves as a channel to reconnect with the past, or what she calls the ghost of the past. So through dance, she deals with personal trauma by encountering the memories that haunt her as a way to embrace them. Without waiting any further, I will off my webcam shortly, and Diyah will present her story. And should you have any question, please feel free to drop it in the question box, and we will read it out to Diyah. at the end of the sharing session. So Diyah, whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for hosting this webinar. Before I start, I would like to say thank you, of course, to Wei-Ling and Wei-Ling Gallery, Johan, and also Shubun, and everyone who's attending this webinar. I really appreciate your kind time, and in this middle of pandemic, we have layer of anxiety in our life, unpredicted situation, and I hope this talk will not give additional panic or worry or additional anxiety. Instead, I would like to highlight what Amanda already shared, how actually art and especially dance has been rescue me in this journey of my life until at this point. So thank you again for being here, everyone in Malaysia, in Philippines, in Thailand, United States, some of my students, welcome, and also, of course, Indonesia. So the dance for me is very personal. The dance is inspiration. The dance is also refuge. And the dance is also my companion since I was little. This dance as a form of inspiration gave me so much of fire until at this point, not only as a form of aesthetic, not only as a form of creative impulse, but also it's a placement for my dream and idea to respond what affect me, especially from surround when contradiction, contestation, and include a mode of oppression happening surround me, and the dance as a form of movement, my body respond as a kind of my personal engagement. Some of you may be doing meditation, doing praying, but for me, the impulse of dancing is the automatic, is the response to each pressure, but also dream and inspiration. So that is a kind of introduction. As Amanda already mentioned, I'm currently a professor at Gender, Women, and Sexuality Studies at University of Minnesota in Minneapolis. This is also a new journey, as most of you probably know. I was born and grew up in Indonesia, and Amanda already mentioned that a lot of beautiful stuff, but also a lot of violent stuff. So this combination between kind of the daily dialectic of being, it's a part that we cannot separate in sometime in our life. I would like to enter this conversation with what Amanda already introduced a little bit about the idea of ghost. So ghost for me is a shadow, it's a projection, but sometimes also is a dream. Ghost for me is also inspiration. As some of you might already know that at University of Minnesota, my current project also is related with the idea of haunting. For this one, I would like to introduce what type of ghost. Ghost for me is retrace. It's kind of a dream that retrace and relate with kind of my being. This one is a part of my longing, my loss, where I actually, as maybe Amanda already mentioned a little bit, how the violence history kind of attached with my body. And I never really know who actually my mother. I never grew up. So that notion of longing and missing was a part of my inspiration that bringing me to respond that I call as a dance. So some of you might thinking that dance is a form of technique that very precise, that very categorized. Sometimes there is a court dance, there is a, some of you introduce indigenous dance, and some of you contemporary dancer too, and I know some of you present in this webinar. But I would like to focus the discussion, it's more as a how the exploration of movement and dance for me become kind of a retracing that goes where I try to find something that I feel at loss or missing or lost. This one, I will start with the dream of my mother. Since the mother is not present, the movement that I try to engage with mostly is a very feminine movement. Very rare I dance with a movement that I don't feel very connected. Often I engage through a conversation with kind of feeling how actually the notion or the memory of my mother that actually I don't have because I don't know. So that missing memory, it's returned to my body, and that is kind of my sources of inspiration. It sounds abstract. It sounds maybe a little bit not in the context of dance training that many of you experience. Therefore, with that note, I would like to enter the discussion on the idea of being other. So I will start with as a child, when everybody talking, about in Indonesia we call ibu, ma, atau or bunda, well, you actually do not have. So this missing part in childhood, it seems simple, but actually it's a very sometimes it's very dark. And whenever I feel that moment, I still remember I often seated at a yard, and then I will create a text, making conversation to myself, and I pretend I had conversation with my mother. And then I will stand up, and then I will pretend to dance with her. So there's a moment of inviting that dream to specific space that I call frontier, for example. So that moment of encounter gave me a fire. This fire is kind of a moment that I introduced at the beginning as a form of retrace. And that constant searching, the idea of femininity and the idea of a mother will become fire that keep burning to force me to walk and being placed and grounded. Then I entered the institutionalized dance school, in which maybe some of you present in this webinar, in which at Institute of the Art in Yogyakarta at the dance program. At that time, since I was not from the city, I was not from the capital city of a culture, that so-called Yogyakarta in Indonesia. So my body already marked as a other, or in Indonesian language, even the dance that I bring or I practice called tari daerah lain, or the dance of the other, because it's not court. So this additional or layer of this identity politic, bringing another kind of recognition that one, you don't have mother, and then you dance, and then you try to find refuge, and then you arrive in certain kind of space, and you face another pressure that what you have is not, the main thing. So it's other tari darah lain, means something that beside. So this constant pressure of not good enough or not enough create another fire. And this is the part that I would like to share, that this fire not create hate. As most of you know me, I'm very rarely speak even loud. I'm consider myself dancing in the speed that very rarely fast. Sometimes I do, but my impulse in working in choreographing is always with a slow movement. And I also would like to acknowledge my friends and few collaborators that I respect and I admire. Mbak Uti, for example, who always try to understand what's going on. So I always invite her. She's from Yogyakarta, and I also have few other collaborators, but Uti is one of my collaborator that quite long time since I entered the formal institution. I think that was one of important point that I would like to bringing up, that this idea, the idea of solidarity and presence of another woman in my journey is very important. And of course I have to also share the dance together during my schooling year was also a part of a journey. But many of you know my work mostly are very personal. I often perform solo, but if there is a collaboration, usually I will take 6 months, 1 year to form or to share what I actually thinking about. And then this lian, or this being other, since you are little, since you are not a part of this norm, the culture of being accompanied by mother, and then constant explaining your technique, your dance when you enter the very prominent art institution, that you are not a part of the palace, you are kind of like from a regional, that marginal, was also bring a different light in my dance career. And because of that, I try to engage with constant question, because this missing mother and this technique that always being viewed not the prominent, not the dominant, was kind of a combination of identity politics that arrive and build kind of idea or inspiration to keep ask question. Therefore, my work mostly dealing with the idea of looking, searching, and journey, and then resulted the first book, The Dance That Make You Vanish, is also accompanied by dance piece called Dance Violence of the Sound, and then the book that Amanda already mentioned, The Moderator, at the beginning, published by University Press, University Minnesota Press in 2013. That book is highlight kind of choreograph and retrace the historiography, my missing mother, my dance technique, my identity politic being kind of other within my own home, not even in the United States where I'm located right now. So it was a politic differences that create the idea of marginality. And that question of marginality and the missing mother was source of my inspiration. Therefore, it bring a consciousness what I talk, what I write, and what I dance. And those are the supporter of my journey in my career. Then I also mentioned about translation. So when I crossed the border and then I decide to reside in the United States, that book projects speak differently. It requires different kind of translation, not only about the language, the reference, the dance technique that I have at home as a kind of creative impulse, but also translation of the event itself. Because in the context of US and the my academic life, this constant translation, I have to speak in multiple language, in which the language of dance technique, the language of discourse, where I speak in different kind of register of historiography and constant kind of consciousness that even when I talk about the dance that being vanished, I try to highlight how actually the new home, the new place in which United States, it was a major factor of that event. So I try not to be native collaborator or native reporter in the sense that I'm signaling and sending message about the suffering, but I engage in how that suffering create kind of different methodology in understanding this politic of globalization in which involve my new home in which the United States. Those are the two kind of impulse that I want to locate in my dance practice and dance writing. But I would like to touch the two new work in which 2019 I'm working in my second book right now, in which mostly focus on the politic of lands and sound, where the idea of lian, tari daerah lain or dance of the other, were marked by the excavation of natural resources, mostly in the forest or in the area that have certain natural resources. And that was resulted two choreography in which one is called On the Way to Cape Town, in which kind of combine, again, still about femininity, about the idea of woman, about norm, about social culture. And the first was staging very briefly in EC Yogyakarta last year, exactly around this time, I think around the end of August, and was performed by me, again, my collaborator Uti, but also with two other students that I was combined the idea of crossing border and natural resources and migration. And then the last work that I would like to mention is from Bahram to Al-Qaim, in which, as you might know, Al-Qaim is around border of Iraq and Syria, in which have a lot of uranium. And that place right now is ruined. And then Bahram, as we know, in Afghanistan, also about ruin. So I combine the idea of loss, retrace my mother voice, my mother inspiration, my mother fire with inspiration, with this kind of excavation, retrace, and I relate with the idea of natural resources and also of violence. And those are combined, how you say menemani, to accompany my second books in which about politic of land and voice and marginality. So I think that is so far what I tried to share, and you already see in the introduction few pictures. Those are wide range of traditional dance that I learned. Some of them inspire my childhood learning with my grandmother, Siti Samijah, but also mostly a dance that I learned at institutionalized aesthetic schooling in which EC Yogyakarta, where I have tension because my body was not considered not proper as a part of this the art institute, because my butt moved to kind of too many movement in my butt, for example, or my flowing my body is not settled, calm, but there is a kind of there is some things that not settled there, and I think this is a part of different aesthetic that during where I grew up during Suharto, the second president of Indonesia, was kind of like considered not proper kind of bodily engagement to the idea of dance, but that being unwanted, my technique that being unwanted well actually is the best sources for me to find my refuge, my inspiration, my writing, and therefore with longing to my mother and the ghost of the memory that never resolve, I keep moving and keep dancing, and I keep collaborate and moving forward and try to engage in more with a lot of conversation, and therefore this is the art that I believe that powerful in the sense that build consciousness not only to claim about suffering but to speak about what actually the idea of critical humanity. And therefore I would like to stop in this one, Amanda. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dia, for sharing such a moving story and such a personal story also from your side. It's really interesting to see how you use dance as a form of to deal with the question of otherness at first, but also eventually it was also about dealing with the personal past and moving on, and how beauty, as you said, how beauty and violence could be combined in such a way. So that was really interesting. We just have one question here, and it's a very simple one. Where can we see your dance? So do you have them online? Do you have recordings of your performance online that we can see? I think the best way is probably maybe I'll talk to you after this, and then we'll share a few links to the attendees after this. Okay.
Yeah, so there is an online female in which I heard in Indonesia you cannot play. So maybe we can do. I just learned like this week actually that in Indonesia female we cannot play. So yeah, I'm in the process of as you know, I'm in the process of create more education, dance and education as a form of my engagement, and that may be there is a website or something that I wasn't in that sense really like to show as a performance, because my project is not about how to dance. People can see dance all the time, but my project is how with dancing we retrace our own being. So the art is not for other in the sense the author can experience, can enjoy, but in my work the dance it's dealing with my question, and therefore it's a proceeding, is a time. That's why I mentioned my collaboration with Uti, and that is online. The title is Dancing Violence of the Sound. That is a collaboration that attached to my book, The Dance That Make You Vanish. But that collaboration is like require a year preparation. I talk with students 6 months. I teach the technique, so when we have discussion, at least they have imagination. I dance a lot outside my own this, because I'm a dancer before, mostly relate with diplomatic mission. There are a few pictures there that I danced in Hanoi, where President Suharto, they have record, of course, in the Ministry Foreign Affairs of Indonesia and Vietnam. So President Suharto, when he became president, it was take so long from 1966 to 95 that he never visited, let's say, Vietnam. But at that 1995, he has to visit Vietnam because Vietnam was trying to enter ASEAN. So during that proceeding, I was sent as a dancer during that time, of course, with my colleague, my friend, my close friend, Rina, Tuti, Mbak Uti, no, Mbak Uti is no, Mbak Tutut from Yogyakarta, where we try to be mediator through this dance technique. But that dance technique was more, like the precise dance technique. However, that event was very meaningful for me because it was the first time this Institute of the Art agreed to send this dance of the other to be a part of that mission. That's why I was being sent. Otherwise,
okay.
through this diplomatic mission, of course, we dance by ourselves and things like that. But after that, there was a time, kind of like that fire was between anger and inspiration for me. So when I went to UCLA, I made a proposal for my schooling. I said, I agree to teach dance, but let's try this, what we call the dance of the other. And of course, there are a lot of video at UCLA archive and things like that. So what I try to say is not about dance that we perform, but how the dance is a more precious in dealing with our own secrecy and retrace our own history. Everyone can dance. You can see a lot of dance in internet. But yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah. It's really interesting and it's powerful how dance itself can be, a tool for yourself, but also in the end a political tool too. The fact that you dance in Vietnam, etc. So there's one more question actually to end this session, and it's a really good one. How does the concept of loss how can the concept of loss be translated into the language of dance while looking into the structures of feeling? So yeah.
Yes. Wow, that is structure of feeling is a term I have to translate, not to Raymond William meaning, but structure of feeling of self. So usually I'm very shy in a way. Usually I start with my own thinking. I do a lot of conversation with myself, and then I let's say, as I mentioned, let's say I feel I have conversation with, seems bizarre, but I'm just going to say I have a lot of conversation with my mother and my grandmother, and that presence of unpresence, it's inspired me to, I don't know if you can see. So let's say, because we cannot see the video that I try to send. So for example, I always explore more a feminine part of myself in that kind of moment. And that structural feeling that being asked mostly is, I mean, as you might aware, I read a lot. So a lot of things in my head. I don't know if I can answer this question, but the technique that arrive in my body is not necessarily can register, oh, this is like Central Java, this is Balinese, this is Sumatra, for example. But I have dialogue. And there are so many brilliant dancers in Indonesia. But I think what I try to contribute or to intervene in this role, how dance can be powerful, is how this exploration of technique from that conversation with what I don't have will bring different kind of light. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Diyah. And I guess that ends the first session of our webinar today.
you.
Thank you again for being here and for having shared such a personal story with us. It's really meaningful, and we really do hope that you enjoyed listening to it. And if you plan to attend the next discussions, we have a session with Anidayu Ali at 12 p.m. Malaysian time and Longlit Bun at 2 p.m. Kuala Lumpur time. So for everyone who would like to join, and if you have not registered for the next ones, you can just simply log on to Wei-Ling Gallery's Facebook for the link, yeah, or just email us. So thank you so much once again, Dia, and everyone for attending, and see you soon.
Thank you, Amanda. Say hello to Kuala Lumpur. I miss it so much.
Of course.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye, Dia.
Terima kasih ya.